nights and you're the last two teams standing.
Everything he does reeks of professionalism and winning.
What a block from Giannis! Fires a three. Bang! Devin Booker! Oh, what a pretty move from Chris Middleton. That was a great cut. Ayton with the flush. Outstanding transition offense. This building is shaking. Well, these playoff series is such a roller coaster ride. You go from joy to despair to anxiety to exhilaration.
The Milwaukee Bucks are one win away from an NBA title. Mike Budenholzer is ready to shock the world. The Phoenix Suns try and hang on and extend the NBA Finals to a Game 7, and this is Heat Check, presented by BetMGM. I'm Matt Moore from the Action Network alongside Raheem Palmer and Preston Johnson, and we're going to be bringing you the best tonight and everything you need to know to bet Game 6 of the NBA Finals between the Milwaukee Bucks and the Phoenix Suns. We'll have sides, totals, props. We're going to fade the public, maybe not. We're doing all sorts of cool stuff here. Make sure to follow along. Glad to have you on board. A reminder that everything that we talk about tonight is available in our award-winning Action Network app. We've got all of the money, the sides, the totals, information, analysis, everything that you need to know. It's all there in the Action Network app. Download it right now on your mobile device. All right, gents, we're here. We're at the precipice. The Bucks somehow, some way, after being 0-2, are in position to win the NBA Finals on their home court tonight. We could look at the series odds and how they've developed here. The Suns open -150. We talked about how that was too high. They're now +310. The Bucks open +125. We're all the way to +375 after Game 2, and now we're -400. The swings in this series. We're not going to waste any time today. We're going to get right to the good stuff. Raheem Palmer, I need to know what your best bet is tonight. What is the one bet that you think has the best value in Game 6 of the NBA Finals?
I'm going with the Phoenix Suns +1.5 in the first quarter. If you've been reading the Action Network, I've been taking this all series long. The Suns have won 4 out of the 5 first quarters in this series. I mean, their first quarter dominance can't be understated. I mean, they have a net rating of +19.5. I know what you're thinking. Game 5, they went off. But even if you exclude Game 5, where they went off and dominated, they have a net rating of +8.5. So the Suns are rolling in the first half. Their starters have just been dominant throughout this whole series. They have a net rating of +13.9. So I'm not going to deal with the bench. You know, the bench is struggling in the absence of Dario Saric and the 9-8 minutes. So we're just going to isolate those starter minutes in the first quarter, and we're going to take the Suns. They have a big motivational edge. Everybody knows that it's really, really difficult to close out a series. So I expect the Suns to come out, throw some haymakers, and catch the Bucks a little bit tight and off guard, and they should cover that first quarter.
Okay, that's a nice, easy bet. It's safe. I like it. It's a very Raheem Palmer bet. High value, specific, doesn't get too involved. Yeah, I'm going to put the screws to you now. Listen, if they go up, if they win this quarter and they win it by double digits and the line inverts going into the second quarter or early in the second quarter, does that spell good things for them? Meanwhile, if they don't win this quarter, are they sunk? Can the Suns win this game if they lose that first quarter, Raheem?
I think if they don't win the first quarter, they're in trouble. So I think, they got to come out and throw some punches. I looked at some historical things with the finals, and, typically teams that don't win the first quarter, they're kind of out of it, So if they can't put it together there and they find themselves in a deficit, I don't like their chances.
I've stayed away from the Suns, even though that's the side that I want to bet, because I've had some what I felt were pretty good caps in this series. It just did not go my way with the shooting variance. And so I'm staying away. If this line inverts, though, I am absolutely going to look to bet the Suns. And hopefully that will mean that Raheem has cashed his bet +1.5 in the first quarter as well. Preston, what have you got for your best bet for Game 6?
I like the under. I know it's moved pretty heavily just in about an hour ago. And so don't like it as much. So if you're still leaning that way or you want action, I would make a smaller bet on the 221, 220.5. My personal projection, and we did, I joined you guys for a heat check. It was Game 3 or Game 4, but it's closer to 218. And in both game 3 and 4, we were getting around the 222 range that this game was until about an hour ago. And that's just a buy point for an underplay. And it worked out in game 3 and 4. It may or may not work out tonight, but when you look at what the Bucks are doing from a defensive point of view on the Suns, not only from even just like Drew Holiday slowing down possessions and taking and picking up Chris Paul full court a lot of the time. I saw in that 538 article that came out from Jared earlier in the week that they're crossing half court with 19 seconds left on the shot clock, which is by far the slowest, or would be if you were looking back at the regular season. So that's just fewer possessions. You see fewer possessions over the course of a series anyway, and now we're in game 6. But I also think the way that the Bucks have defended the 3-point ball, specifically, you guys remember in game 2, the Suns shot 40 of them. They made 20 regardless. They made over expectation, but they took 40. Since then, they're averaging, I think it's closer, it's like 27 and a half 3-point attempts. And it's because the Bucks are fine now living with Devin Booker and Chris Paul isolations and then taking mid-range jumpers. They just decided, hey, we're going to out Matthew on the other end and shoot more threes ourselves. And the Bucks have shot since that game 2, 18 more threes than the Suns. They're fine. They're staying home on 3-point shooters defensively. And if Booker scores 42 or 40, it doesn't end up mattering. He'd have to just be uber efficient for them to play catch up. And so defensively with Drew, combined with the way they're limiting threes, I'm not sure there are a ton of adjustments that the Suns really have to make offensively to score a bunch more. And then on the other side, and I'm stealing this tweet from Matt, so shout out to him a couple of nights ago, but it was, and you might actually rephrase it for your little bit here coming up, but it was the Suns defensively, as far as expected effective field goal percentage for the Bucks, it was their best. Looking at the shot quality of the Bucks of the entire playoffs of any game, it was like 46.4% or something in that range. Yet the Bucks shot nearly 20% above expectation. So they're making a ton of difficult shots. I think there's going to expect to be some regression there on the Milwaukee side. Home or away, doesn't matter. And then again, slower pace, and just the fact that I think the Suns are kind of hitting a wall offensively that the Bucks have solved. Credit Mike Budenholzer and company, along with Drew. And so, yeah, I like under still 221 is not quite as big of a play as it would have been at 222, but that's the direction I look.
You don't like to mess around with the numbers, but I will ask you this.
Okay.
If you're on BetMGM, it's now 220 and a half, down from 222 and a half. 222 and a half is minus 125. Is the extra 2 points worth the 15 cents in juice?
It's almost certainly never worthwhile. I don't have it in front of me to give you a direct. My guess is that the true 2 points and a total in the 220s is going to be more like 11 to 12 cents and not 15 cents. So okay. I would say no to that, but without certainty.
But that's actually really helpful, right? It's like 11 to 12 cents. It's like, look, they're specifically pricing this just outside of the range of where it would be valuable for you in order to get that original line. As you mentioned, the under was 222 and a half just hours ago. Now it's 220 and a half. In the Action Network app, we have tracked big money coming in on the under. The under is getting 46% of the bets, but 67% of the money. Big differential. We also talked about how we like the under on the Action Network podcast with Brandon Anderson, Raheem, and I earlier this week. So you can hear more about that before tip off as well. Love that bet. Was going to take that bet, and you taking that bet meant that I couldn't justify just being like, yeah, I'm taking the same thing. I can't do that. This shows for content. So for purposes of content, I will go ahead and I will take the first half under as well. I am going to be on the under with Preston. I grabbed it at 108 and a half. It's now at 107 and a half. If Preston doesn't like the 220 and a half as much or nearly as much as he liked 222 and a half, I certainly don't like adding another point off of a halftime total. So don't love it. It's at 107 and a half. But I will say this, the first half under in this series is 4-1. The second half under is 4-1. Over is 4-1. So they don't score in the first half. They do score in the second half. What's really interesting about that? What's really interesting is we're seeing the opposite effect of what should occur, which is this. The Bucks in the last 3 games of the series that they have all won have come out with the same scheme. They play drop coverage versus the Suns in the first quarter. The Suns get comfortable. Then the Bucks go to their switch. They change it up and they start switching everything. And whenever you switch things against an NBA team, there's a little bit of a grind as they try and figure out what they want to do. The Suns in particular are really trying to hunt those switches. I'm going to be interested to see tonight whether or not the Bucks go to switch earlier. Like there's a whole bunch of ways that they go to switch earlier. And you say like, well, what the over has been hitting, that's mostly been a product of pace rather than the actual efficiency in the second half. In the first half, they've been trying to be patient and kind of get through these things. Preston mentioned this. The Suns shooting variance on the road has been light, like night and day. Cameron Payne in particular has been absolutely atrocious in the playoffs and especially in this series in Milwaukee. But Cam Johnson hasn't shot as well. Jake Crowder hasn't shot as well as at home. I am expecting that regression from last game was the Bucks' best shooting game under Mike Budenholzer versus expectation. If you take what they should have shot based off of where they shot from and how close a defender was, and then what they actually shot, this was the widest gap between those in 3 years of playoff runs. They finally got shooting variance to go their way in what honestly is like the best moment possible on the road for a game 5, setting up tonight's game 6. It's one of the reasons I'm not sure the Bucks are out of the woods yet. I will say this though. I do think that there's a higher chance that the Bucks offense stalls out and they can still win. So of all of the outcomes, if you want to play a team total side, I'd probably lean towards playing the under on the Bucks rather than on the Suns, even with the Suns on the road. I feel good about it at 108.5. At 107.5, I feel much less good about it, but I will take 108.5 on the under for the first half as well. We're expecting a rock fight tonight is basically what we're saying.
Let me add one more thing real quick. I think it's interesting because you noted the second halves and the totals 4-1 to the over. There's been more scoring, more pace specifically, which is the main driver to why there's been more points in the second halves. All but one of the games in this series have been nearly blowouts or double-digit deficits at halftime, which if you're following along live, like one of the teams has to pick up the pace in order to try to make up possessions to come back. And so that's why you actually look, the one game was game 4 Milwaukee that was close at halftime is the one in the second half that went under the total. So a lot of those second half numbers and the increased scoring has been a factor of increased pace because the team is down 11 to 20 something points already and they need to increase possessions, or they fouled late at the end. Also, there was another second half that I know it pushed over on some fouls late, but that's just something to keep an eye out for people just in general next season, watching second halves, like the score and the set and the specific situation determine how many possessions are going to be in the second half, not necessarily what do they average prior. It's very dependent on the score and the situation, and that's what we've seen so far in this series.
Yeah, we'll have to keep that in mind for next season, which starts in like 35 seconds, I think, which is great. All right, Raheem, let's go ahead and get to the wheel. Every week on Heat Check, we go through a wheel. This is props randomly set. We have to prepare for all of them. There's a different player for each one of them. Raheem, are you ready for the wheel?
I'm always ready. Let's go.
Let's spin the wheel for Raheem Palmer. All right, you got to pick a prop for Drew Holiday. What prop for Drew Holiday do you want?
I'm going to go with 4.5 rebounds, and I'm going to take the over. I mean, both of you guys said that you think there's going to be a low-scoring game. I agree with that. We're going to see a rock fight, which means that there's more opportunities for rebounds. Now, he did hit this in the last game because both teams shot close to 60% and had offensive ratings of 130. We're not going to get that type of game tonight. We're going to get a low-scoring game. Since game 6 of the Nets series, he's playing around 41, 42 minutes a game. So he's going to be out there tonight. And, Drew Holiday has hit this over 9 out of the last 13 games since game 6 of the Nets series. He's out there. He's a great rebounding guard. There's going to be opportunities to pick up these rebounds. So let's go over 4.5.
I like it, except that if we're wrong and our prior of this game is going to be ugly in a rock fight does not hit, then you're in trouble. And I'm always nervous about I've done this too often this year where I've diagrammed how I think a game is going to go and made bets, like corollary bets based off of those priors. And then the prior's wrong. And you're like, well, there goes all of the little branches on my timeline that go away. But I can't blame it. You went over it. 9 of the last 13. That's a really great rate. So for this number to still be there, I think you've got a really high effectiveness.
Mm-hmm.
All right. Preston, you ready?
Yeah, let's do it.
All right. Let's go with Preston Johnson's spin on the wheel. You get PJ Tucker. What do you want from the player with the best shoe collection in the NBA Finals?
It's up there, that's for sure. So I didn't love many of these, but I made a note on Tucker. Like his 4.5 is just low, and it seems low for a points prop at 4.5. The reason being the fact that it's typically been 5.5, but hasn't played as many minutes the last 3 games. But I looked, and it's because he's had 5 fouls in the last 3 games and been in foul trouble. He hasn't been playing as frequently. Prior to that, in games 1 through 3, he scored at least 7 points in each of those. He shot at least 5 times in each of those. So I saw 4.5, and you can get up to as good as plus 125 on over 4.5. I think the adjustment from 5.5 to 4.5, that's really significant, especially juiced under, because that's like nearly 20% of his entire allotted point total, right? That's a massive move down. It's only 1 point, but it's 1 point of 5.5 plus juice under. I'm going to flip. I'm going to go the other way. I think he'll, hopefully, there's a chance he's in foul trouble again. Certainly could happen, but I think I'm going to go play against the adjustment within this series. If he can play 30 plus minutes, get his 5 shots up, that's good enough to go over 4.5 at plus 125. So I'm in Tucker we trust for the shoe collection.
So I don't mind it. My only kind of concern is that they've had a lot of success when they go to Connaughton and they go with the starters in Connaughton and Tucker's place and basically play 3 guards. And then like Portis and Giannis or some variation of those. But really with the rotation as short as this is, I can't imagine Tucker not playing. Like they have telegraphed that if anybody's getting cut in terms of minutes, it's going to be Brook. They, like I said, they start off and drop. They go to switch more and more and more as the game goes on. They just don't have a lot of confidence in Brook, I think, late in the game versus this specific team. I think they got a lot of confidence in Brook, who's been great, but I can't blame it. The total's so low. Like it's just such a
fluky stuff happens. A foul, a putback. He does get the offensive rebounds occasionally, and then just like the 1 corner 3, and we're good. Yeah.
Just a 3-point play from him would absolutely be massive. So I can't blame it at all. All right, let's go ahead and I'm going to go on the wheel. Let's go ahead and give me a spin. Chris Middleton. All right, I have a juicy one because this might be our last show, so I'm going to go out swinging. I hit the first point scorer in game 1, so I'm going to go back to a different well. And I'm doing top point scorer tonight, Chris Middleton, plus 500. I get 5-1 on Chris to be the top scorer, which I understand how great Giannis is. He's amazing, but look, Giannis has been hitting free throws the last couple of games. That's probably going to come back down to earth a little bit. Here's the bigger one, though. Middleton's averaging 29 points at home in this series. Giannis is only averaging 33. So that 4-point gap is enough for me to justify a plus 500 5-1 roll. I think the Bucks are also going to be looking for, teams in this spot. You've got the NBA title, like especially if they're up, they're going to be looking for those home run shots. This team in particular, look back to Drew Holiday's lob to Giannis when he could have ran the clock out. Like they go for the kill. It's kind of cool to see. Like the Bucks are very likely to go for home run shots. It's one of those, I'm not necessarily like, ooh, but they're just going to run their offense. Well, a lot of their offense really is just Chris Middleton, like making tough shots. That's a big part of their offense. He's been on fire. He's at home. He shoots great at home. I think there's good value at 5-1. I also want to mention, I do have a ticket on Chris to win MVP from back in the conference finals at 14-1. So that would be great if he would go ahead and have like a massive performance and then the voters completely lost their mind.
Yeah, he'd have to score 82, I think, man.
Yeah. Well, no, here's the play. Maybe if he like goes off, but then they lose in a close one, and then he goes off in the final. No, even then,
I think you would need to add CJ McCollum to the voting committee for this.
Yeah. I do want to mention this though about BetMGM, which I think this is a really great thing for bettors that they've done. You can live bet finals MVP during the finals at BetMGM, which I have not seen any other book do. Like they are updating it during the game. So if you do need Giannis on a hedge, like, I don't know, me, as he's like the only person that didn't take to win MVP, you're kind of hoping the Suns get like a big lead in this game, one of those double-digit halftime leads, so I can go ahead and grab Giannis, maybe at a much lower number to try and hedge out. That is just something I wanted to drop in there about betting finals MVP live at BetMGM, although the swings on that could be very dangerous for me, and maybe I should not do that now that I think
Matt,
about it.
You're not the only one. I'll say I know a few sharp people that went out of their way to go to a particular sports book in Vegas that was offering a no price in the minus 300s, which at the time no one even thought he was going to play, or at least not the first few games. So a lot of people need him to lose MVP, and so I'm sure it's going to happen. But there's some other sufferers out there with you.
Everyone's hearts are rooting for Giannis. Everyone's wallets are rooting against him. All right. It's an old axiom in betting. You got to fade the public because theoretically the public doesn't know anything. Now, our Action Network followers tend to do pretty well on these, but I do like seeing what the results are. Every week we ask you a poll based off of a prop or some sort of game prop or player prop. This week it's Chris Paul, who's not had a good last 3 games. I think he was fine in game 5, but no one agrees with me. Chris Paul's points and assist line at BetMGM tonight is 30.5. We asked you want the over or the under at 30.5 points and assists, and you took the under at 52%. No faith in the point god. Raheem Palmer, I will ask you, maybe for the last time this season, are you with the people or an enemy of the people? Which side are you on with Chris Paul?
I'm with the people. I mean, like you guys said earlier, Preston and Matt, they're both on the under. So this is correlated. So, I mean, when you look at Chris Paul, he's really been struggling since they switched up their defensive coverages and had Drew Holiday, guard him, all the way up the court. It's taking the 19 seconds for him to get up the court and whatnot. So, I mean, when you look at Chris Paul's stats throughout the series, for the series, he's averaging 21-9. But during the last 3 games, he's averaging 16.7 and 9 assists. So, I mean, I think this prop is a little bit too high. And then also with Drew Holiday guarding him the way he's been guarding him, Devin Booker has taken control of this offense. Chris Paul's usage rate has gone from 27.9 in the first 2 games to just 23.6. That's a small enough, number to where I think it stays under. So.
I do want to mention that assist rate is also, it's difficult to have an assist rate when Devin Booker has a 42.5% usage rate, as good as he has been. That's something I just wanted to throw out there.
You've been on top of that since game 5.
Well, I've been on top of that, and Suns fans have been on top of me. So it's been a whole double-decker sandwich going on after game 5. Preston,
I mean, I'm enjoying the Kobe system from Devin Booker right now. So
where's Kobe from?
Philadelphia.
Where
Marion.
Where are you from?
Philadelphia.
Okay, now we've done the Raheem Palmer where he's from. All right, Preston, do you like the over under 30.5 assists and points for Christopher Paul?
I will say, somewhat related, I kind of agreed with you. When you're watching, it's not very aesthetically pleasing because of Booker being put in this. I got an ISO, and he doesn't look the best. But I also, when I've just looked through it and watched it back, so I'm like, the Bucks are just staying home, and there's nothing really they can do, which is part of the reason I like the under anyway. It's part of the reason I have to go under 30.5 here on Chris Paul, because they're going to let Booker do his thing. Even if he scores 42-40, the Bucks have been absolutely okay with that. And I'll say this because I think, Raheem, you knew the number, 16.7 and 9 or more or less what he's averaging since they switched Drew Holiday onto him, which is low. So you're wondering, well, why is this number 30.5? Look, this isn't something I love. Again, I'm going with the public at 30.5, but there's a good chance, is Paul going to play fewer than 44, 45 minutes in this game if the season's on the line? Probably not. So I think you have to inflate some of the actual opportunities. Even if the usage rate is down a little, the minutes are just going to be basically max what he can possibly play. He might try to go the whole second half, those types of things. That's why you're going to see an inflated number for some of the stars in this type of closeout game in the NBA Finals. So for me, I wouldn't be betting this, but just from a sheer numbers perspective and the fact that I do like the under for the full game total, I'll go under the 30.5.
I sadly, I'm going to go with you two and the public. I am also going to take under 30.5 because I'm taking Chris Paul to score 27 points with 3 assists exactly, just on the hook. Chris Paul delivers. No, he's not going to deliver them. No, I will say this, though. I think to this point, you have to show me that you're going to get away from what your game plan has been in the last couple of games. You mentioned that the Bucks are staying home. This is kind of the whole point. This is really the crux of the argument. Not about, is Devin Booker an empty stats guy, or is he poison? That's not the question. The question here is about Monty Williams, and it's, do you continue to run your stuff when it's difficult and force the Bucks to rotate, to get out of staying home, to bring help on your guys and open up the ball movement, because that's what's gotten you to the NBA Finals, and that's what got you 2 wins in this series? Or do you take what the defense is giving you, which is Devin Booker can do whatever he wants as long as we shut down the threes and we keep Chris Paul in check? We do not care. That's what the Bucks have told them, is we don't care if Devin Booker scores 40. We're okay with that. It's the same question that a lot of teams face with every superstar, from LeBron James to Steph Curry to everybody else. The question is, are you okay if one guy goes off, if you can shut down everybody else? And the Bucks absolutely are. I have not seen anything from Monty Williams to suggest that he is going to be able to get them past that he's going to force that issue. There's a lot of conversation that Chris Paul's wrist is hurt. His left wrist is damaged, which leads into his inability to go left, as Raheem Palmer has mentioned on the Action Network podcast several times. There's just a lot of reasons here to take the under. I want there to be one more chapter for Chris Paul. I don't want it to end this way, but you got to go with where the data and where the evidence takes you. And it's definitely towards the under in this game and the under for Chris Paul points and assists. We'll see if he's got one more trick up his sleeves. So to recap, Raheem Palmer's got the Suns first quarter plus 1.5. He's got Drew Holiday over 4.5 rebounds, and CP3 is not going to score over 30.5 points and assists. Preston likes the under of 222.5. PJ Tucker over 4.5 and CP3 under. I've got the first half under 108.5. Chris Middleton to be the top scorer at 5-1. Let's get wild. And CP3 to once again have a rough game, as it sounds like, based off of those numbers, probably looks like a Bucks title in game 6. But either way, it should be a great watch. If this is the last episode, it's been absolutely fantastic having you guys along for Heat Check presented by BetMGM. If there's a game 7, we'll be back for it. But until then, make sure to tune in to Action Network HQ for all of our great content and download the Action Network app. That'll do it. Thanks for joining us on Heat Check presented by BetMGM.